Better? I have a big mouth. Most of you know me. We've kind of been around the block together. If you don't know me, my name's Judy. I wear a bunch of different hats, so you may know me from any number of those hats. I paid my mortgage doing interventional cardiology, but now, you know how they say when you're too old to do it, you teach it. So now I have a company that certifies anesthesia and interventional cardiologist. But I'm also Aleppo Township's president of commissioners, and I'm also the emergency management coordinator that handles Aleppo Township and therefore Masonic. So people that have been here for a long time know me as the Wicked Witch of COVID. Although by the end of it, Eric hated me when we started COVID because Aleppo Township, I think because we start with the letter A, but I tend to be a little aggressive, and Aleppo Township was the first township to declare an emergency in Allegheny County. And I did it because of Masonic, so that I could support Masonic. And I come on from the very beginning, closing down your grill and making sure nobody could go wandering around and all that stuff. And everybody hated me. And about a month in, when Brighton started happening, I started getting texts from Eric that said everybody should have a Judy, because at the end of it, Masonic had the lowest numbers of infections and the lowest numbers of deaths in any comprehensive retirement center in the state. We were 27th in the nation, so that's how the people that have been here for a while got to know me, because I was kind of over here being horrible to them for a number of years. So we did some funny things. We sold, MC and I went over to Amazon one day. You guys were out of PPE. You didn't have any gloves, you didn't have any masks. And so we went over to Amazon to see if they could help us out. And they couldn't help us out. And we looked in the back and there were pallets of hand sanitizer and gloves and masks. And I said, wow, can we have some of those? And they said, well, no, we're selling them online. I said, not anymore. Have you ever heard of eminent domain? So, and Steve brought her Subaru over, and I brought my Subaru over, and those jerks made us load them. So we loaded all this stuff up. I said to Eric, meet me at the front door of Star Points, and we were carrying like gallons of sanitizer. So we had fun doing some crazy things, but we got it done. Okay, today, what are we doing? Today, somebody told on you. I'm told that nobody's following fire alarms. You're ignoring them. And could I come and try to fix that? So we're going to talk a little bit about fire response, why it's important, what's really important, what you probably can get away with, and what you probably shouldn't try to get away with. So I would agree with you. Fire alarms are a pain in the butt, especially when we both know that you get, they keep track of your falls. It's like some kind of fall point system. And doing fire drills, it's very easy to get like run over by walkers and stuff. So nobody really wants to do them. But there's some pretty good reasons and some pretty easy ways to do them. Here's the excuses that I hear all the time. I'm too damn old to be running outside for a fire drill. We just assume it's a false alarm because, let's face it, it always is. It always goes off at the dumbest times, which is also true. It's usually during dinner. I pay for an elevator, and you pay a lot for an elevator. I'm not walking down the damn steps. I'm using the elevator. The truth is, we are too old to be running out in the middle of whatever outside. We do assume that it's a false alarm. It does go off at the dumbest times, and you do pay a lot of money for an elevator, and it would be nice to be able to use it. So all of those are truthful, all of those are understandable, all of those are good, valid reasons for saying, this is stupid, I'm not doing this. But now I'm going to give you even better valid reasons why you might want to make an exception. Time is the absolute most important thing for fire response. And it's an unbelievably short amount of time. Right? How long do you think it would take the first row to get up, go back, get a cookie, come back and sit down comfortably? Minute and a half, 2 minutes. A video that we're going to watch in a minute, in just a couple slides, is going to make you wish that you could get that cookie in less than a minute and a half. Because when you're talking about fire, a minute and a half is a very, 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 very long time. The other problem is that at our age, we're leaders, we're not followers. Let's face it, you don't want somebody up here telling you what to do when there's a fire and what to leave behind and what not to leave behind when you're smarter than I am, you've been around longer than I am, and so you're not listening to anybody. It's just who we are. As we get older, we have a lot of experiences. I used to be an engineer, or I used to be a fireman, or I used to be a service dog, or whatever you were. And so we tend to have leading personalities. And so it's very hard to follow. But in the middle of an emergency is not the time to question leadership. It truly isn't. We'll talk about that. There's a time to do it. There's a time to say, geez, we just did this. Do you know what the heck you're doing? And I don't think you do. And have that discussion with the people that told you to do something stupid. But in the midst of an emergency is probably not the right time to do that. The other issue is that all of us in this room represent a fall risk. Right? We're all older. We all would not do well with a fall. The number one cause of death over the age of 65 is in fact complications from a fall, specifically hip, which is why healthcare really concentrates on fall prevention, because it causes more mortality and morbidity in people over 65 literally than any other disease process or traumatic injury. And we're all at risk. And frankly, running a bunch of people in a retirement community down the hallway to get them outside comes with a risk. There's also a larger number of people in this community that require assistance with evacuation. So there's a number of people, whether it be in the SNF, whether it be in the skilled nursing facility, or in assisted living, in the apartments, who would need help if they had to walk down 4 flights of steps, or frankly just absolutely couldn't do it. So there's a lot of challenges that you guys as a retirement community present to EMS, to fire, to security, that they don't meet when they're dealing with residential or even commercial response. And so their ability to practice that and to make sure that they get it right is just unbelievable. I would be willing to bet that there are medics at Valley. I've been at Valley for MC and I just got an award for being the longest continuous paramedics holding medical command in this state. So it's actually pretty funny. It makes me feel like a fall risk. If you become a paramedic today, your state number is 6 digits. I think the last one we certified was 174880. My state number is 2800. 2801. People don't believe me when I tell my state number, and MC's is 2368. So it makes us feel very, very old. But so I have evacuated nursing homes before. I have evacuated apartment buildings because I'm old and because of what I do. Many of these young guys, if you were to go over to Valley and talk to the staff over there, I bet you 60-70% of them have never been involved in evacuation of a facility like this. And so those drills that they do, that practice, that going through, we do tabletop drills twice a year, where instead of risking making you go outside and run down hallways, we sit down at a table and present how many patients and what needs done and what would we do and how would we do it to make sure that they're prepared to do it. Common sense causes of death in fires. I put common sense in there instead of just common causes because many of them are preventable. Number one is delaying your decision to exit. is the #1 cause of death in fires. In residential, that's the second cause. In commercial buildings, and particularly in skilled nursing facilities and assisted living, it's the #1 cause of preventable death in fires, is people delaying their response. And you'll see why in a minute. The other one is not being trained or not being familiar with what you should be doing. And frankly, if that happens, that's our fault. That's our fault. If there's somebody that lives at Masonic that has no idea what they should do when there's a fire alarm, that's on us, that's not on you. Everybody in the retirement community should know what you should be doing and why you should be doing it. And that's one of the reasons that we're here today, is to play with it. The other one is either delaying exit to get belongings, and I'm including pets, right? Or going back to say, oh my God, my mother's wedding ring, I have to get it out of there. My family's pictures are in there. And having somebody who has already exited that then comes back. And that's particularly dangerous for a reason that I'm not sure that would be one that you would think of, but we'll talk about it in a minute. And the other one is the old S&S thing. And I'm Polish and German, so I have it. I'm both stubborn and stupid. But that whole S&S thing really comes into play in our community. We all know each other. We all know that we're pretty set in our ways. We've been doing our ways for a very long time. And of course, my ways are better than your ways. And we all feel the same way. So we just don't like to be told what to do, especially when we think it's stupid. But in this situation, it truly is a matter of safety, and it can be a matter of life and death. Okay, here's the 1 minute. We talked about a minute and a half to get a cookie. Okay, now that doesn't seem like a long period of time. I'm going to show you a video of what happens from the time a very small fire starts in your rubbish can in your kitchen to complete flashover, and the time frame that you see that. It's pretty impressive, actually.
So the fire's starting in a waste can in the corner. So
Okay. Look us up. Unfortunately, I think that's is that the volume from here? Let's see.
starting to flicker in there at this time. That's just paper products in a garbage can, as if a cigarette had been dropped in a garbage can, okay? You hear the smoke alarm initiating now, within seconds. Without that smoke alarm is what's buying you time to get out of that structure. Without the smoke alarm, you can see how fast it's beginning to spread. Now the corner of the couch is becoming involved. And once the arm of that couch is involved, you'll see the fire accelerate even more rapidly.
1 minute. You haven't even made it to the cookie.
You can now start to see some black smoke coming off of the flames. In just a second, that black smoke will be filling the ceiling, and you'll start seeing that black smoke begin to exit out of the structure. You can see the smoke coming out of the front of the structure now. So hopefully, if you'd been home, you would have been able to exit your home already, dial 911. It takes about 2 minutes to make that 911 call and get the fire department on the road, and then it'll take us 4 or 5 minutes to get there. So about the same time that this room will be going to 1150 degrees, you hope that the fire department's arriving and extinguishing the fire. At this point, you'll see that the fire will accelerate exponentially every second. Y'all ready? On there? Okay, now watch the material across the couch. You'll see that the material will start melting and deforming as the heat comes down. When that material starts deforming, it's giving off gas vapor that will ignite. Now look up the ceiling. You see the smoke burning at the ceiling now. So we're at about 1,000 degrees at the ceiling. And at this point, it's igniting see the little chair catch on fire? Go, 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 guys. Notice the carpet's on fire? There was nothing burning on the carpet. The carpet was heated up, began giving vapors off that will ignite, and when it went to 1,150 degrees, it all ignited. Okay, go ahead and knock it down, guys.
That's called flashover. And that occurred at 3 minutes and 37 seconds. Thank you. That's called flashover. And that occurred at 3 minutes and 37 seconds. It happens between 1,100 and 1,200 degrees. So long before that flashover happened, that room became incompatible with life. Because incompatibility with life happens at about 500 degrees. So at about 2 minutes, you would have been incapacitated in that room. So most deaths come from breathing those gases that ultimately cause ignition, but most deaths in fires happen in the first 5 or 6 minutes of the fire. It's not, I know we have nightmares when we hear that somebody died in a fire, and we're thinking of somebody laying there for 20 minutes, struggling to get out, etc. That just doesn't happen. Most deaths occur very, very early in the fire. So you can understand why I keep saying time. That time is of the essence. Now think about if you leave 30 or 40 seconds earlier, the time that it takes you to turn around from the door of your bedroom, walk back to your nightstand, to grab your cell phone and that picture that you love of your husband. You go from compatible with life at 350 degrees to incompatible with life at 650 degrees before you make it back to the door. So that's why everybody really pushes with, you would rather walk out the door and into the parking lot to make fun of Mike for making you go out there 10 times than you would want to miss it once. Because to miss it and not go is a disaster. I've been tempted. We were in Alaska, and I sleep naked, which is more information than you want to know, because I'm fat and old and hot all the time. And from the time I was in Alaska, I never do this again. I always have pajamas hanging right on the bed, because we were on the 8th floor, and we had to run all the way down, and I had to find my pajamas. And I realized that finding my pajamas, if it had been a fire, would have killed me. Because it took probably 3 minutes for me to find my pajama bottoms. But I would have rather died than run on 8 flights naked. So I figured it was a good switch. So now when I travel, I always have pajamas hanging on the end of the bed for that reason, because nobody in Alaska is going to see me running down the steps. But time truly is the big deal. How long does it take to do stupid stuff? How long does it take to find your purse? Right? You can't take your purse with you. Right? Dead with a purse is not better than alive without a purse. There's nothing in that purse that can't be replaced. You really could have left without your robe. If I'd have been trapped on the 8th floor of that stupid hotel in Alaska because I had to find my pants, it would have been my fault. because it would have been a preventable death or a preventable injury. And we were on the 8th floor, so we'd have taken all the smoke. So it really was kind of stupid. And what we usually do is say, oh, honey, let's wait and see if they cancel it. They always do. By the time someone from security here or the fire department gets to your apartment to decide whether there is smoke showing, if there is smoke showing outside your building, the apartment that started the fire is not compatible with life. Because you've got to have smoke out of that apartment exit through the whole ventilation system and go out the top of the building. So time truly is a big deal. Why do fireworks work? We are fireworks. I just was at a commissioner's meeting where people were complaining about fireworks. So I have the other commissioner in the room's laughing. So I have fireworks in my head. Why do fireworks drills work? It's because of automation. It's because when we do something repetitively, we don't think about it. We don't have to engage our brain. We do it absolutely automatically. Think about the things in life that you do. There's a lady here that was knitting before we started, and I doubt very much that for every stitch she was saying, okay, put this needle through this hole and take it around it and pull it back out. She has done that so many times that she's doing it automated. She can listen to what I'm saying and knit if she wants to because she's not thinking. She doesn't have to engage her brain. That's the goal of fire drills, is automating your brain, making it so you hear the alarm, you get up, this is what you do the same thing every single time. Okay? You get it in your head that you're going to sacrifice all that stuff to save your life. Because you can't take that stuff with you. You really can't. What do you think the #1 cause of fires in senior apartments is? This is actually pretty funny. Bad cooks.
What's next after you don't cook?
You're pretty safe if you don't cook. Next would be the bad cook that lives next door.
Down below you.
Yeah, or down below you. It truly is. Accidents in a kitchen is #1. And unfortunately, kitchen fires are probably the worst small fire to put out because they involve grease and superheated materials and they have splash. So, if you have a grease fire, it's usually because grease has splashed and is then ignited. Bad cooking tips. Never allow the fire that you're cooking with and it also isn't efficient. It doesn't cook very well. Never let the fire extend over the edges of the pan. #1, you won't burn your fingers, and your food will cook better. If you ever took a class from a chef, he will always tell you to match your pan size to your fire size so that you're only heating the bottom of the pan. You're not heating the air, you're not heating the towel, you're not heating, and you guys are electric, right? Yeah, I've started 2 fires. The first thing I did when I bought this house, when I moved from Moon, was put gas in because I grew up cooking all of my life on gas, and I bought a house in Moon and it was electric, and nobody could get in my head that electric stays hot. When I shut the gas off, the gas goes off. So I was always putting the oven mitts or the towels or the paper plates on top of the burner that remained hot, which didn't go very well. Remember that they stay hot. Just because you turn them off doesn't mean that you can drop the tea towel on them or you can do that. Particularly if you moved here from a place with a gas stove. The other thing that I would do, they sell those stupid decorative covers for electric stoves. They really burn. I would have those on because I wanted things to be pretty. And then I'd turn the thing on to heat up the element, and they smell really rank when they burn. But they burn really, really well. Never, ever, ever put cold, wet, frozen stuff in oil, ever. If you ever wanted to see a horrendous picture, watch fools who fry turkeys and put them in frozen. I've seen some of the neatest, we have a weird sense of humor, but I've seen some of the neatest fires coming out of turkey fryers that people have put wet turkeys in or frozen turkeys. They're phenomenal fires. Be ready. Don't be caught with your pants down. Literally. Literally, that's what happened to me. Make sure that you have the stuff that you're unwilling to leave without. It's real easy. Just put it in a drawer near your bed instead of all the way across the way. If there is that one photo that you literally would die if you lost because it's the only photo that you have of your spouse or your daughter or whatever it might be, put it in the drawer next to the bed. Most fires occur at night. Okay? Have it there. Have your cell phone next to the bed for a whole lot of reasons, not just fire. If you need help, you can get to your cell phone. It's really hard if you need help to have to get your cell phone out in some other room where it's charging. Have it there. Things like eyeglasses, hearing aids, things that you can't do without. If you need assistance walking, if you would need assistance getting out of your apartment, have that assistance reachable. I know you're comfortable in your apartment, and so you might not need your walker to go from your bedroom into the bathroom or to get up in the morning and get a muffin or whatever. But think about if you would need that walker to get out of your apartment and down the hall, have it reachable from your bed so that you can get to it. You don't have to run and get it. So what happens when there is a fire? Here's the key players. Here's the people that make a difference whether we live, die, or lose all of our property. You, numero uno. The decisions that are made to save lives happen before any of us get there. Second will be Masonic staff. Okay? Security and the people that are within your emergency operation plan to respond in case of a fire. They will always be there before the fire department. You have a volunteer fire department, so they have to be notified by pager. They have to drive to the fire department and they have to get here. And usually it's pretty quick. It's 7 or 8 minutes, which is pretty darn good because we're a small township. But 7 or 8 minutes, you see, the game is a lot of times already over in 7 or 8 minutes, and we're extinguishing, a fire that isn't. We can't save your couch anymore. So the first one is you and the Masonic staff. The Masonic Village has an emergency operation plan in place. It's been in place for many years. They review it every couple years. They upgrade it. The township has a copy of that plan. Fire department has a copy of that plan. So everybody knows this facility and what they should be doing when they get here. You are a multi-alarm response by definition because of the number of souls at risk. So you would get multiple fire departments. In this area, it's most often would be Aleppo as your first response, Ohio Township, Swickley. Your second wave would be Leetsdale, Moon Township, Edgeworth. So they come in waves as they determine how big that fire is. The other response that you will get is EMS. It's that the fire department is in charge of the fire and everything that surrounds the fire. EMS is in charge of the people and everything that responds to the safety and the treatment of the people. Me, depending on how large of an event it is, if somebody burns their toast, I'm not getting out of bed and finding my pants to come over here. But certainly if there's a significant fire at Masonic, you would see me because my job is to coordinate all of the different kind of responses. If it was really large, that it was starting to overcome the resources that we had to control it as that group of people, the township would be involved, and the emergency management coordinator would notify the president of the township, which would be kind of a short conversation. And then if the township decided that it was warranted to declare it an emergency, because why do we do that? Why did I declare it an emergency early for COVID? Because the declaration of an emergency permits us to do a whole lot of things that we can't do if we are not under a state of emergency, like steal your PPE from Amazon. If we weren't in an emergency, we would have had to put it out to bid, and nobody would have had gloves for 6 months. If we're under a state of emergency, I can steal it. I could steal vaccines for you guys from Allegheny County because our township was under a state of emergency and theirs wasn't. And so there's a whole bunch of things that happen under a state of emergency that doesn't happen in an everyday kind of thing. And if the township gets overwhelmed, we can involve Allegheny County. So the emergency response system in the United States is a lowest denominator system. So nobody comes in unless they're invited to come in. So the county can't say, you guys are a bunch of idiots, I'm coming in and taking over that emergency. In fact, even when the county comes in, the local authorities remain in charge of that scene. The county's purpose is to give you resources that you need to get done what you need done. But it's a lowest denominator system. So because you know your township, you know your retirement community, etc. So here's what you can do. You hear it, the first thing that you do is alert. You see it, you have a fire in a garbage can that's bigger. The rule is bigger than a candle. Okay? If you have a fire that's bigger than the size of a candle, it should generate an alarm. So you have a fire in a garbage can. You have a kitchen fire. The firemen are adrenaline junkies. Paramedics are adrenaline junkies. There is nothing that feels better than getting in a fire truck or an ambulance, putting all those lights on and coming across the Swickley Bridge in rush hour. You feel like the parting of the Red Sea. It's just a cool feeling. So you will never hear a fireman or a medic say, geez, I wish we wouldn't have got that call. Because it's just kind of fun. And coming down Merriman in an ambulance, I have went airborne coming down Merriman in an ambulance because you got that thing. It just feels really cool. So no fireman, no paramedic will ever say, you idiot, why did you call me? You bothered me when I was eating my pizza. You will never hear it. It's anybody in those two things, and police are the same way, are adrenaline junkies by definition, is what we do. We like to respond. If you call us to come up here because you got a little garbage fire, we come flying up here and somebody spits on it and it goes out, we don't care. We would much rather come up and say, okay, we don't have to do anything, than have you not call. So if there's ever a doubt, alarm it. Right? It's no big deal to overreact. It's always a big deal to underreact. So pull that box and exit. Get out. Getting your neighbors out, getting the people down the hall out is somebody else's responsibility. It is not yours. If it is easy to do, take your cell phone with you. Once you get outside, if the response has not already arrived, call 911 and make sure that they know the exact location of the event. You guys know Masonic. I could come here in an ambulance and run around with red lights on looking for you for probably 20 minutes. Okay? Make sure that they know exactly where you are. So if you can, take your cell phone with you. Don't go back for it. Use only the steps. I know you pay for an elevator. If you're unable to use the steps, wait for assistance. It's the first thing that fire does, is come to designated waiting spots to help those who cannot use the steps. There's a couple ways to do it. There's a bunch of good-looking young guys who will carry your butt down the steps. Or, if it's the fat old firemen that come, we have sleds, etc., that we can slide you down the steps, okay, that are designed for that. The young guys will just pick you up and carry you. The older fat guys will use the sleds. But either way, you will get down the steps. It's their job. If you get to the top of the steps, which is your designated waiting area, and it's full, there's a bunch of people there, there's people playing poker or whatever it is that they're doing, your secondary waiting area is the closest trash room. I always wonder about it. Why doesn't Masonic put the people in the trash room? But it's actually the safest place to be in the building other than the stairwell. It just sounds, we should like rename those rooms or something. It's like if you want your life saved, go in with the trash. It just doesn't sound right. This is important. Once out, stay out. Once out, stay out. Don't get outside and say, Oh my God, I think Becky was home and I haven't seen her out here. I gotta go in and make sure she got out. That's somebody else's job. Oh my God, I should have listened to Judy and put my husband's picture next to the bed, and I didn't, and I don't want to lose it. I'm going back in to get it. There's a couple reasons. One is your safety. You might get back in and not get out. But the other is that no one will check on you. One of the things that fire does, or the Masonic does, depending on who gets there first, is they mark each room. You've probably seen on TV when I do a disaster medical response. And one of the things that we do is as we go through a neighborhood and check houses, we put a big giant X on the door. That means we've been here, there's nobody in here. Right? Or we put a 2. Put an X and we put a 2, which means we got 2 people out of the house. So that if somebody calls and says 101 Swickley Heights Drive, oh my God, I haven't seen my mother, we can say there were 2 people in that house when we went by and we got them out. So your mother must be somewhere. Right? They do the same thing on a smaller scale here. They go by, most places use Post-its. They'll put a Post-it on the door. And anybody else that sees that door with a Post-it on it knows that somebody checked your apartment and that it's empty. So if you go out to the parking lot, Mike goes by, checks your apartment, knows that it's empty, he moves down the hallway to do the next apartments, and you come back in and you get trapped in your apartment, nobody's coming back for you because everybody that goes past your apartment is going to see your apartment door marked as being empty. Once it's marked as being empty, the assumption is that it's empty. So people don't go back. That's why that's a very dangerous thing to go back, even beyond, oh my goodness, you might get stuck in there. It's that nobody will come in to help you because we assume that you're in the parking lot where you belong. Follow the directions of fire and EMS. Okay? Do fire and EMS always do it right? Heck no. Can we do some stupid, idiotic things that you have better ideas? Absolutely. There's a time for that. After we do that, after everybody's fine, we put the fire out, call the fire department and say, hey, Bull, you're an idiot. This is what happened. I don't think this has worked. Call Judy and say, hey, we needed this, 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 and this, and we didn't have it. I think we can do better next time. That's the time to do that. In the middle of it, and this is even true of medics and firemen, fire, EMS, and police have an absolutely unquestionable rule. You never question authority in the midst of an emergency because whoever is in charge is hands off. If I'm in a car accident or I'm in a fire and I put my hands on the fire and start doing something, I'm no longer in charge. There's a reason for that. It's the leader's job to keep the big picture. You don't know the big picture. And so what I'm doing or what I'm telling you to do may seem really, really stupid at the time. But when we talk about it afterwards, you may find out that because of something that was happening over here at your neighbor's, it was actually the right thing to do, and it would have caused harm if you didn't do it. So never question in the middle of it. You are absolutely free to improve the process afterwards or before, but in the midst of an emergency, it's dangerous to do that. Here's just a little tip, not only for where you live, but when you're staying in a hotel in particular, or even you're visiting a friend whose house you're not familiar with, just take 2 seconds when you go to your hotel room to count the number of doors between you and the exit. Okay, if you come out of your room and you make a left, there's 6 doors, the next door is the exit. If you come out and make a right, there's 4 doors, the next door is an exit. Because in the midst of a fire, 2 things happen. The room fills with smoke, which is very dark and black. It's very disorienting and you can't see. You're confused, you're excited. 2, you lose electricity, so you lose lighting. If you just take 2 seconds and you just tuck it in, that doesn't have to be a big deal. I'm doing my fire count. It can just simply be, okay, there's 6 rooms between me and the exit. It can be life-saving because you can get there when you can't see. Okay, who are our people? Most of you know Bill Davis. Everybody know who Bill Davis is? It's Bull. He's our fire chief. He's also the head of the water authority. So if you have a water leak, you'll see him. His name's Bill Davis. He's the chief. He has an assistant chief. One of them always responds to Masonic because of the potential here because of the potential of the number of people involved. So one of them will always be here. The first thing he will do is get here and assess for the presence of fire. Is the place actually on fire? It's his responsibility to say to dispatch, Masonic's clear, or there's smoke showing, let everybody keep coming. Okay? Because there's multiple fire departments that are dispatched every time something happens at Masonic. So it's his job to either call them off or to let them keep coming. His next step is to assess the risk to people. Is this an empty maintenance building, or is this one of the apartment buildings? How many people are in the building? The reason that he has to do that quickly is because he needs to get the resources here. It seems like an easy job to just get everybody out of a building. It is not. Particularly when you're dealing with older people, there's all kind of accountability issues, and you need people here to treat the injuries that happen when you're doing that. And so there's a lot of assets that they need. The fire chief will coordinate with EMS for the evacuation and the treatment of patients. So it's fire's job to get you to EMS, and it's EMS's job to figure out if you are injured or not injured and what to do with you, where to put you. It's my job when I get here, if your apartments are destroyed and we have 37 people that don't have anywhere to sleep tonight, that becomes my job to find a place for you to sleep, to find somewhere to put you. The fire chief remains the authority on scene and oversees everything that has to do with fire suppression. They will check every residence to make sure they're empty, and they'll assist EMS with evacuation. EMS will get there, and they take charge of patients. They will set up triage and treatment areas. I'm sure you've seen that on TV, green and yellow and red and black. If it's truly a big evaluation, they will set up large treatment areas like that, and they will tone it down for whatever the response is. So if they don't need, a big thing, they only have, 10 people that are potentially injured. They obviously don't need big tarps for triage areas, but it's their job to make sure that they're dealt with. They will manage, treat, and transport all patients. An emergency, it's called a mass casualty event, which it would be if we were evacuating here, is the only exception to you having the right to tell them where to take you. If you call an ambulance and you want to go to Lower Slibobia, unless it would jeopardize the community, unless they're the only ambulance and you want to go to Cleveland, they have to take you. They can't kidnap you and say, you can't go to Swickley, you have to go to Allegheny, or you have to go to... But they can try to convince you, and they do that. I know they do that. But if you just put your foot down and say, I'm going to Lower Slibobia, they have to take you there. An emergency is an exception to that. So because the EMS person in charge will have assessed the hospital's capabilities of how many patients they can take, how many critically injured patients they can take, how many medium patients they can take, how many walkie-talkie patients they can take, and they will fill up those criteria in a certain order. So when there's an emergency, they'll no longer listen to your preference. You can still swear at them and yell at them, but they'll ignore you. Then this is when the buck stops here thing. In national disaster, the buck stops with the local EMS coordinator. So even if I get overwhelmed and I call for help from the county, or I call for help from the state even, or even FEMA for that matter, your local emergency management coordinator remains in charge of the event. So usually if I would become involved, the township would become involved. I can't see a situation where I would be over here managing the evacuation of Masonic that I wouldn't call on the township to open the emergency operations center and provide me resources to do that. So they would probably both happen at the same time. What else do I do? Some examples of what I do. You run out of PPE, okay, and you're in the midst of a COVID mess. That was my problem. Getting vaccines to you guys because you're a high-risk community was my problem. Getting electricity to you guys a few years ago, you didn't have electricity for several days. And Eric said, oh my God, what are we gonna do? And so he called me and I called the county and I found out that there were telephone poles down all over the place. And one of the ones that was down Merriman Road. And the next set of telephone poles was supposed to go to the school district at Stowe Rocks. So I said to the county guy, I said, I know there's a Duquesne Light guy sitting right next to you in the Emergency Operations Center. Put him on the phone. And he got on the phone, he said, you know, we have a line of priorities, we have to get the school done. I said, okay, here's how we're gonna do this. This is how emergency management coordinators come in handy. I said, here's how we're gonna do this. I understand you have priorities and you have to follow those, that's protocol. I said, but I have priorities too. And I have a geriatric population at risk who has had no electricity for 4 days. So if you're gonna leave me at the bottom of that list, I'm gonna have no choice but to evacuate 529 souls from Masonic. And if I do that, that's gonna overwhelm my abilities in about a half hour. So I'm gonna have to call the county to do that. So unless you guys wanna evacuate Masonic for me and find a place to put all those people, and the next thing you know, we stole Stowe Rocks' telephone poles. They brought them up here and they put them up. But the other thing that and Eric bought me a fruit basket, which was very sweet. But the other thing that they did is they put a secondary line into Masonic. So now you'll notice when your electricity goes off, unless it's beyond the central post, there'll be a off, and about 45 seconds later it'll come back on, because they simply switch you over to another grid. They put a second grid in coming down Merriman because they didn't want to hear from me anymore.
When?
Huh?
When?
That was about 3 years ago. They put the secondary grid in. Now, if the electricity goes up here, goes down, and it's beyond the center pole, if it takes, there's a center transformer that bifurcates, and if it is distal to that pole, we're still hosed, because it takes down both grids. So there's a couple houses that took advantage of that too, because they're beyond that second matrix. But we haven't had any long-term electrical outages up here for a long time.
Yeah, that'd be 30 days.
What?
30 days? I mean, what about last winter? It was on for some days.
It was never off 30 days last winter.
No, I'm saying it's not been a long time. We constantly.
Yeah, 7 hours is not considered a significant outage. 72 hours is considered a significant outage. By definition, 72 hours is considered a threat. So it doesn't, and that's true of everywhere. That's even true of hospitals. Even hospitals without electricity is considered 72 hours.
Can I ask you a question? Please?
Sure.
Amazon, it's right across the street.
Yes.
Are they on the same grid that we are on?
No. But they also have huge generators, so they will never be out of
I know
electricity.
they have that. My question is, if they're on a different grid that is more reliable, why can't we connect?
No, it's not that they're more reliable. It's that it carries the commercial current down to the industrial park. They're on the grid that serves the commercial industrial park. You're actually on a safer grid because you're on a grid that is separated from the others. So if they do something stupid, you don't lose electricity. Is the reason that you're not on their grid, because they're much more likely to do something stupid than residents are, because they have a higher demand for electricity. You'll always have, any community will have a commercial grid and a residential grid, and then you'll have a healthcare, right? If you have a hospital. But 72 hours is usually what's considered to be a significant outage. And you haven't had a significant outage since we put that second grid in.
Judy,
Yeah.
I think what the residents are talking about is, it seems like the frequency of outages are higher than they ever used to be. They might not be sustained periods of time, like you're talking about, but they're off 3 hours, 2 hours, 45 minutes.
I can tell you why.
The frequency of them.
It's because the trees in this area are at end of life, and there are constantly trees falling into wires. That's what always takes down the electricity. If it's Swickley Heights, Aleppo Township, I guarantee you it will always be a tree across the line. 100% of the time, it's a tree across the line. And then Duquesne Light, the tree guys, the fire department can't touch the lines until Duquesne Light can come out and shut down the line and guarantee that it's a cold line. And then the fire department has to come out and cut it down. And then Duquesne Light has to come out. If it's shorted, they have to replace the transformer and rerun the line. 100% of the time in Aleppo and Swickley Heights, it's the trees. And we've had some horrendous, horrible windstorms. There's a lot of pines and shallow-rooted trees that come down from the roots, and it's. Yep.
Are the tree holders ever held responsible?
The what?
Are the tree owners ever held?
No, it's usually the county. If you go down Glen Mitchell, if you go down past Swickley Creek Park, if you go down past Swickley Heights Park, I mean, there's a million trees that I could pick out and say there's going to be the next tree that comes down the line. Duquesne Light does not do, and neither does Allegheny County. We've tried. They do not do prophylaxis tree trimming. They don't cut down trees. They don't cut them back unless they fall into the lines. It's stupid. They respond to events. They don't do preventative tree trimming. We've talked to them about it a million times. They're in concrete with that. Yep.
Last winter, we were out of power for 2.5 days. How can that be prevented?
Can't be. That's less than 72 hours. Yeah, it can't be. The only way that can be prevented, and I'm just telling you the rules. I'm not saying that I agree with it, but the county's answer to that, Duquesne Light's answer to that, is that your facility should have generators. That's their answer. The last time you were out, I went to the county and said, we have to do something about this. And their answer was, we've talked to them a number of times about generators. It's not our problem until 72 hours.
So if it happens again, it happens. That's what you say.
Unless you have generators. The same way,
I don't know.
well, the same, you don't. The same way would be me saying my electricity in my house was out for 72 hours. Whose responsibility is that? And they would say, if it's important that you have electricity 100% of the time, you should think about buying a generator. It's not considered significant until 72 hours. It truly is the person's responsibility. I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm just saying that that's the policy. Yep.
Would you go over again, if we have a fire,
Yes.
if some pan is on the stove, it starts to smoke and catch on fire, the smoke detector goes off, but where does the fire alarm go off?
The fire alarm goes off when, are your smoke detectors wired? Like, okay, so the smoke detector will set off the fire alarm, but as you exit, I still want you to pull the alarm box.
But it takes a long time before we pull those alarms in our apartments. They don't respond immediately.
If you pull the alarm in your apartment, you shouldn't be in your apartment.
All right, well, where's the alarm you're telling us to pull?
There's an alarm at the end of each hallway.
We've been told not to
There's
touch
one on
it
the wall right over there.
Who told you not to touch a fire alarm?
unless it's absolutely necessary.
Who told you not to touch a fire alarm?
I believe that the fire chief does it. They just told us to get out of the building.
I'll answer that. I said, I don't know if I know how to do that fire, the fire extinguisher and everything like that.
No, you don't need to know how to run a fire extinguisher. You need to know how to pull the alarm.
And where is that?
At the end of every hallway and every apartment.
Somebody told us
There's a red
not to
one
touch
on the wall right there.
Yeah, there's one right there. There's one right there. Yeah, you don't need a fire extinguisher to put out a fire.
Yeah, we're not.
All you need to know is as you run down the hall to get the heck out of the building, reach over and pull that little alarm.
But I don't think we know that. You ask everybody in this room, do they know where that alarm is?
You should. You should. I believe that information's been distributed to everybody. Am I correct, Mike? Yeah, the evacuation policy has been distributed to every resident that lives here. So, and every one of those, I have a copy of it, every one of those evacuations says it. If you want, we can put it up on the public system and run it through there again. But everybody should know that there is a fire alarm at the end of the hallway of the building in which you live. Because you pull it on the way out the door. Yep.
What we got in the apartment, in the kitchen and the full court, are not connected to the fire alarm. That is connected to security.
That's medical assistance. That's different.
That's very different. And I think, Judy, what you're saying is, if you have a fire in the apartment, you don't pull that full cord. You get out of the apartment, go down the hallway, and pull the red box.
Right. But your smoke detectors, which would go off in your apartment, also notify that there's a fire in the apartment. So, but you still need to pull that fire alarm as you exit. If there's a fireman that told you not to pull a fire alarm, he was in the middle of a stroke. Truly, because the firemen preach in their sleep. They wake up and say, "Don't forget to pull the fire alarm." They live and breathe it. Yeah.
I set off my smoke alarm a few weeks ago because I was frying something and there was too much smoke. My smoke alarm went off inside the apartment and security called me, but the alarm in the hallway didn't go off.
No, that's why I'm telling you to pull it. Your smoke detector will alert Mike,
There's an incident.
and he will that there's an incident of smoke in your apartment, and he will investigate that. But if you have a fire in your apartment that requires you to leave your apartment, pull that fire alarm, in which case it'll notify the fire department.
Yeah, I didn't have fire, I just had smoke.
And the whole-
Yeah, like,
What will happen too, if you have smoke in your apartment and you open up your front door
huh,
and that smoke gets out in the hallway, that will set off the building fire alarm.
there you go. That's why Bull's running over here all the time in his truck.
That's why we say if you've got smoke in your apartment and it's just the smoke, and don't open your front door to vent it. Open a window in the living room. Do not open your front door, because once that smoke gets out into the hallway, it's gonna set the entire building on fire.
And Bull will stop what he's doing and respond to every single one of those with lights. Every single time that goes off, Bull stops what he's doing and dispatches with lights. Yep.
According to our handbook, the only instruction it says, if a resident is unable to use the stairs, they should remain in the stairwell for assistance in evacuation.
Yes.
Nowhere does it say anything about the trash room. And also, how much room is in the trash room for people in wheelchairs? Has anyone really taken a survey and see what is the physical space on landings and in the trash room for
Mike.
the number of wheelchair and a walker people we have?
Have we done that?
That's not my job.
We have not done that.
That's a facility. That's a facility issue. So yes, they should have done that. I don't pass the buck. That they should have done that.
We don't know if people in wheelchairs should go to the trash room because there may not be room there.
If they don't know that, they should know that. I'm not making excuses for people. If this facility doesn't know that there is room for people that are evacuating to be in the evacuation area, it needs fixed.
Find that and
That needs fixed. Yes. Yes. Yeah, that's information that definitely should be available. But everybody should have a copy of, or have received a copy of, the steps that should be taken if you find a fire in your apartment building, in a common area, anywhere on the Masonic campus. Everybody should know what to do, which is literally get the hell out and pull the fire alarm. Yep.
At one time, on each hallway, there was a volunteer who was supposed to go and not check the doors if necessary. Do they still have that procedure, or is that procedure gone?
No, there should never be a resident who is responsible for the life of other residents. That should be a staff member, and I believe it is a staff member. You have people assigned to check doors, don't you? And if he doesn't, EMS certainly does, so does fire. Yeah, it's the first thing that fire and EMS will do, is if there's a fire that puts people at significant risk and they've decided that you need to get out, the first thing they will do is go to each and every door, make sure that they have a master key, they'll make sure that there's nobody in that apartment, and they'll mark your apartment door. That's the number one thing of an evacuation process. So if Masonic doesn't have it in their EOP to do it, fire and EMS certainly will. I can answer for fire and EMS.
And the doors we're supposed to leave the doors unlocked when we leave.
Yes. Yes, it makes it easier and faster for fire to open the door.
That brings up another subject there, because you have to have your key to unlock your door.
Okay.
And so that's the time of unlocking your door to leave the apartment unlocked. You know what I'm saying? You can't just lock your door by the inside of it, you know. You can do that as long as you're in the apartment, but you can't
But you can't unlock it.
unlock it without a key.
Well, then the hell with it. If it takes extra time, forget about it. We'll unlock it with the master key.
Well,
Truly.
That's a problem. I think maybe the key should be looked at. My question, as a newbie here, we had one fire drill since I've been here. And I was surprised going down the stairs, seeing people and walkers sit at the landings. Now, I live close to the exit, and I'm pretty agile to be out very early. But if everybody in walkers are standing at the deck, that's going to block access to people
Yes.
getting out of the building.
I agree with you. I agree with you. Where the evacuation areas are defined is a function of the facility. Fire's protocol is that we will go to whatever area is defined in your EOP as an evacuation area and assist those people down the stairs. We know where your areas are. We have your EOP, and yours happen to be at the top of the steps in the trash room. I personally have never been in one of your trash rooms. And I'm not even sure that Bull has ever been in one of your. Pardon me?
We've never been told that.
Yeah, we've never been told that.
We gotta fix that.
Sonic's probably gonna go.
Yeah, we gotta fix that.
What should the residents do that cannot leave their apartment? Let's say they're wheelchair bound and they have an electric wheelchair and the wheelchair is power strained. What should they do?
There should be a list of, we call them land-bound people. I have a list of everybody in the township that couldn't leave. I have a list of everybody that's on oxygen in case the electricity goes off. I have a list of everybody that can't leave their residence because of situations like that, so that we know if we're evacuating, Bull has to get up there with a sled and get them out. And I don't know for a fact, because it's not my place, but I would hope that there is a list somewhere in Masonic of completely homebound or landbound people that would need assistance from their apartment. Now they would be found as fire goes to each individual apartment. Ultimately, when they open the door to the apartment, we would say, "Oh shit, Pat's in there." We would then get Pat out because Pat's in her apartment. And either she chose not to leave because she was going to wait and see if it was fake, or she can't leave because she's in a wheelchair or whatever. But either way, fire would find them during the evacuation process as they went down and checked apartments.
Is there any precautions while they're in the apartment that they should take to prevent as much injury to themselves?
Yes, and we'll talk about that in a second, to limit smoke and heat, etc. Okay. Some of the other things that the emergency management coordinator does is coordinate response and resources, and come and do this. I do this about twice a year. Every time I do this, I've never done a fire one before, but every time I do this, I identify things like I've just identified, which causes me to have a talk with Tracy and say, you might have a couple issues here that you want to look at. And so that's the other job that I have, is to make sure that EOPs are consistent with response and they're as safe as they can potentially be. And I will certainly take that to the powers that be. Maybe we need to make some changes, or at least some changes in notification, and make sure that you are getting the information that you should get, and probably should take a look at the evacuation areas, and how many people there are in that building compared to how many people we can get down the steps. Or are we waiting at the top of the staircase? Is that what you have them doing?
If they're in a wheelchair or a scooter, that the top of their fire escape, fire towers.
Okay, so how do the ambulatory walkie-talkie people get past all the people with the wheelchairs or do they end up trapped behind them?
Prefer to get around them. They have to get down the steps. You can't have a gaggle right there at the top of the steps. Excuse me.
Okay. But I think that's what we're asking you to do, is to put a group of people at the top of the steps, am I right? What I'm hearing is we're asking people, that's exactly what we're asking people to do, is to stand, take their walkers and be at the top of the steps. Because this lady's saying for the fire drill, she couldn't get down the steps because there were a bunch of walkers and wheelchairs in front of the staircase.
It gets jammed up.
It gets jammed up, but we haven't been able to really survey how many people at the top of each floor. So we really don't know how many people are being trapped up there.
Okay. Yeah, we should probably figure out if there's a less congested space to use. Go ahead.
I don't belabor the point, but is there some group we could talk to work this out in more detail? Because I think there seems to be a problem.
That would be your safety committee. You have a safety committee here that's pretty active.
Who would be?
That's a facility question. Mike, who is on that safety committee? Do you know?
They have their internal safety committee.
That's what I'm saying. He's asking who is on it.
Pat Harris is on it. You're on that committee. That safety committee. There's a group of them. I don't have the list of the names. Sorry.
Before I leave here, give me your email, and I will get those names for you. I'll get them for you. I know that you have a safety committee because that's who contacts me to come and speak about various things, so I know they exist.
Judy,
Yes.
What is the time period that you can expect the stairwells to prevent smoke and heat from affecting the people that are waiting there for additional help?
Would depend on the location of the fire and whether it is below them or above them. Our general fire response to Masonic Village is between 5 and 6 minutes, which is pretty darn good. Bull gets here first. The squad is usually behind Bull, and behind that squad is usually the engine. So he usually has enough people here to get up in those stairwells within a minute or two of him getting here. EMS, if they're escalated, EMS starts on a fire response without lights and sirens, because usually EMS is needed to treat people who are injured, and so they're not needed in the first minutes. And if they get there really early, they clog up the response from fire. They get their ambulances in the way of fire trucks. But if Bull gets here and says there's smoke showing and it's Masonic, I guarantee you'll have ambulances from 7 different ambulance services coming here in about as far as a bunch of adrenaline junkies can drive an ambulance.
What I was really asking was, are those fire escapes supposed to prevent the ingress of smoke into that area?
No.
So they don't prevent smoke from going anywhere smoke would go?
No, they do not. They do not. I don't believe that you have any smoke removal. Do you have smoke removal fans in your elevator shafts? Yeah. Yeah, I don't think you have smoke removal anywhere in any of your buildings except the SNF. The skilled nursing facilities have to.
It's not a building code that you have to have a smoke-free
No.
escape.
No, it's not. And I don't know of any municipality that has it, actually. Except the medical licensing part of it. Yep.
This is going back to the beginning, where you said most of the fires start with your stove.
Yes.
Would it be wise to have, the fire blankets to be able to?
Yes.
In the kitchen to be able to just plop on there?
Yes. If you could get to it quickly and instantly.
So that might be a recommendation.
Right. But I would say the same thing is not to delay leaving to try to put a fire out. But if you had it right there and you could quickly throw a fire blanket over a pan, yes. That's what I do at home. That's what I do.
At one time, this is a while back, maybe Nick knows the answer to it, but about 8 years ago, we were told that the stairwells are an airlock. And so when we were in the stairwell.
Or a what?
It's like, acts like an airlock.
No, that's absolutely false.
You need to close the doors on each floor when you get in there and not leave them stand open.
That's just because they're fire doors. And so if you're in the nursing facility or you're over in assisted living, as there's a fire alarm in one section, the fire doors will close just simply to try to prevent fire from progressing laterally. Because in a medical facility, you evacuate laterally instead of up and down because it's difficult. And there has to be firewalls between. So anytime there's a fire, we always tell you to close doors. For example, if you wanted to be obsessive compulsive about it, fire recommendations are that you sleep with your bedroom door closed, because it will slow down fire from entering from outside. But no, there's no air protection or air evacuation within your stairwells. I know that for a fact. I can say that without hesitation, and that's never been true. Yep.
I'm gonna show my ignorance, okay?
He's setting me up. I can tell by the tone of his voice. Go ahead.
I'm in a 4th floor apartment.
Okay.
Halfway down the hallway from the stairwell. And, my, apartment catches on fire, okay?
Okay.
And, the smoke alarm goes off, security calling me to see if everything's okay.
You shouldn't be there to answer the phone.
I understand, but they're doing that, okay? I'm running down the hallway to find the red button, okay? People are starting to come down and they're filling up the space with, wheelchairs, motorized scooters, whatever you wanna call them. And how does the fire department get to my fire?
Oh, believe me, the fire department will get to your fire.
Well, I mean, the people are gonna be clogged in that stairwell.
Not for long.
Do they have to come up the stairwell? Do they have to bring hoses up?
They'll come up the elevator, first of all. They have keys to your elevators, which is one of the reasons why you don't want to use the elevator.
Okay.
And they will get up their steps. I'll tell if you want to ever see what a bunch of guys who are adrenaline junkies for a fire department will do, park by a fire hydrant and call a fire in. They'll take an axe to both of your windows and run their 4-inch hose from the fire extinguisher from the fire hydrant to their pumper to pump water on a fire the size of a campfire, just because they can. They absolutely will. A fireman will absolutely get to the 4th floor of your building.
Okay, but what I'm saying is, again, I'm saying I don't know.
Those young guys will pull those people out of their way and run a hose to that fire.
Fire hoses in the hallways. I never even paid any.
You probably do have click-in hoses, I would think. And if you don't, they'll pour 4-inch right up the steps.
Okay. But again, that's my concern is we're trying to evacuate where they're trying to come in with a hose.
Let's just say if you're blocking the way for the firemen to come in, you will be evacuated a lot faster than you are capable of doing. The firemen will get them in. I guarantee you the firemen will get a hose to your apartment.
Excuse me, people that need, are in wheelchairs or need more help, do those fire blankets work and should they have those for those
No.
residents? No.
Do they work in outside fires? If you're fighting a forest fire and a forest fire has to come over top of you, maybe it's a last-ditch effort for a fireman who's in a forest fire waiting to have the fire pass over them. Otherwise, it's a multi-million-dollar internet industry. It's kind of like the airway vacuum cleaner thing. Yeah.
I've got a personal request, because we've asked people, not to do this when a fire alarm goes off. Please do not call security. If you hear a fire alarm, react to it like it's a real fire. By you calling security, there's only one of us on each shift. We're running to the fire to find out where that fire is located. We're also talking to the fire chief who's on his way. If you clog up our phone, we have to keep answering it. We can't do our job. That's all 3 shifts. There's just one of us. So please, if you hear a fire alarm, react to it as if it's an actual fire. Let us get to it as quickly as possible. If we can determine it is not a fire, we will turn that alarm off right away.
Yeah, I can't think of a reason that I would call security in the middle of a fire.
You would be surprised. Right.
Hello, am I burning up?
Thank you.
Okay. The smartest victims in a fire are the people that put the most people at risk. I'll say this 100 times. They are. You might know better. You might know more. You might think you know how to do it better. But when you get in my way, all you're going to do is slow me down, and I'm damn good at what I do. I'm going to give you an example of that. That's a real-life Masonic Village example. In the middle of COVID, it was Mother's Day. Everybody was mad at me because people couldn't visit their mothers. I was getting phone calls from Allegheny County Ombudsman because I can't visit my mother. They're killing my father. They don't want to tell me. They don't want me to see my father because they're doing something terrible to him. I was getting all of those phone calls. And we still said you can't come in here. Because even though you might want to kill your father, you're not killing everybody else. And that was I said that all the time. You have the right to kill your relative, but you don't have the right to kill somebody else's relative. No, you can't come in here. Everybody's relative is just as important as everybody else's. There are no exceptions. So MC and I were up at the cemetery 2 days after Mother's Day. We do the Tuskegee Air Memorial. We were up there messing around at the Air Memorial before the Memorial Day thing to make sure the flowers are right. And there were these 2 30-something women who were messing with one of the graves that was near there. And MC said, "Shut up for a second, listen to this." And so we shut up and we were listening to their conversation, and they were all excited because Masonic isn't going to tell me what the hell I can do with my own mother. We had her simply leave the back door open in her apartment building. We just went in the back way. We had a wonderful Mother's Day. So first I called Eric and I said, "Eric, you got a problem. Please put cameras at those back doors." And then I walked over there and I said, "Man, I just heard your mother is at Masonic. She wasn't one of the ones that died from COVID after Mother's Day, was she?" And this lady looked at me and she said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "They had an entire apartment building get infected with COVID. I guess some asshole came in and spread COVID among a bunch of high-risk elderly people. And we had like 6 or 7 people die. It was a shame." And this woman just kind of looked at me and I said, "And I happen to know it was you." That was a real-world example. Thank God it didn't happen. Thank God they did just go into their mother's apartment. But these were somebody who, the one girl was a nurse's aide, and so she thought that she understood virology better than virologists, and she decided that coming in just for a couple hours on Mother's Day wasn't going to put anybody at risk. Did anybody read the news about Brighton? They were very kind to their people at Brighton. They had a lot of people that wanted visitors. They were one of the only nursing homes that allowed visitors all during COVID. the emergency management coordinator, who actually used to be a friend, simply called them and said, I want to come in and see what you're doing with COVID. And they said, we don't want you in here. And he said, okay. And I said to him at the time, I said, why aren't you in there? Like, people are dying. Like, why aren't you in there? And he said, well, they don't want me in there. I said, let me tell you, if I would have called Eric and said, what are you doing with this COVID thing? And he would have said to me, it's none of your business, I'd have had the National Guard at Masonic within 24 hours. There's protocols in place that are there for a reason, and they might sound stupid, it might sound cruel for Mick to say, get the hell out of your apartment at 10 o'clock at night in your underwear, but they're there for a reason, because we've pulled out charred, ugly bodies from nursing homes in their underwear because they didn't want to go outside, or because Mick didn't answer the phone to tell them it was a real fire, or because they needed purses. There's real life reasons for doing this, and it almost always is the smartest among us that kills his neighbor. I don't say that to be mean. There's always somebody that knows how to do it better, and that's good. I love input. I love the input that we got here today. We just found the number of problems that need fixed. That's absolutely wonderful. This is the forum to do that. Meeting with that safety committee that I'm going to get you the names for is wonderful. That's the place to do it. You guys are living in those apartments. You know what the problems are. You know where the holes are. You know what we need to fix. But in the middle of an emergency, saying that you were a fireman 55 years ago and you used to do it better, so you're safer to stay in your apartment and close your door or not to pull the fire alarm, is not only stupid, it's irresponsible, and it causes deaths. It causes problems. These aren't games that we're playing. It's not politics. It's not fun. It's not whatever. It's you guys are at risk. And there's a whole lot of people whose responsibility it is to make sure that we can minimize that risk in the best possible way that we could. COVID was a very serious thing for me. COVID was, in fact, a traumatic event for me, because I take 500 souls under my care very seriously. And I know the fire department does as well, and so does Valley Ambulance Authority. But we can't do that without you guys at least hearing us and doing what you're supposed to do. So on a better note, on a more fun note, we're soon going to have a present for you, and I wanted you to be aware of it. Valley Ambulance is participating in a program that only 4 other services in the country are participating in. We've acquired a dog who is a critical incident response team member who is being trained to sense cortisol. You know what cortisol is? Cortisol is the chemical in your body that responds to stress. It's the chemical in your body that is dumped before you escalate and shoot me in the head. It's the chemical that is present before you have road rage, or before you break down and do whatever. And this dog is going to be trained to sense cortisol. And so we're going to use him for a number of different places. His name's Goose. We just got him about 3 weeks ago. In fact, he was going to bring him up here today, but he won't be certified for another month, and so I can't really bring an animal in that's not quite a service animal yet. But we're going to have him up here. He's also going to be used for outreach for the ambulance service, just to come up and say hi to people. But we're going to use him to debrief responders that have horrible calls, who have calls with dead kids or terrible, shootings or whatever. We're going to use him to debrief. We're going to use him to help treat victims of car accidents or shootings or just, oh my God, I lost my husband and I'm not coping kind of situations. We're also going to use them to just kind of come up and say hi to people that might be stressed out. In fact, we'll be doing a lot of that in the beginning, because that'll be part of his training, is to be able to sense people that are just kind of stressed out, so that he can sense people that truly have an issue. So you're going to be seeing Goose around. You might end up seeing something in the mail or something on the thing asking for a couple bucks for Goose. We're currently trying to finance Goose. Aleppo Township, we're about to vote to send a $1,500 donation to Goose. And we're gonna challenge other townships that Lee covers to do the same. So, yeah, it's kind of a fun thing. You'll be seeing Goose. He's a yellow lab. Right now he's about this big. He will be this big, but he's so gentle. He puts Brian's the chief of Valley, and he was holding him the other day. We had him up at Montorrance Country Club, and Brian was holding him, and he had his little head on his shoulder like he was a baby. I was like, oh my God, we're getting a wimpy service dog. But he's adorable. His name's Goose. I thank you for listening. There's probably still a bunch of cookies back there. They're Prentles, which used to be Lincoln Bakery in Bellevue. They're actually pretty good. I would recommend the oatmeal raisin because they're slow.